All right, hello and welcome back to Global Fintech Fest Day 2. We have a lot going on around, and thank you for your kind presence, the ones who've already joined us. Up next, ladies and gentlemen, we are moving forward to an interesting workshop. As you can rightly see, the theme or the topic, the future of supply chains, why companies should digitize payments. And to talk about the same, we have with us Ms. Bhakti Zaveri, Director, AuroPay Payments, Aurionpro Solutions, alongside with Mr. Snehal Pandit, Head Supply Chain Management, Aurionpro Solutions, to talk about the same. Please help me welcome them with a round of applause.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I know you will be waiting for lunch, but we'll have a 30 minutes good session. Right? Okay, why supply chain, right? And being in a fintech event, and we are talking about here supply chain. So, any guess like why we are doing supply chain? But then I've been doing supply chain for last 15 years, right? And that's why that was the best topic to get in. And secondly, it is more relevant to the payments arm, right? So when we talk about supply chain, it's about suppliers, it's talk about buyers, right? It's about invoices, purchase orders. It's about how we can improve the cash flows, right? The working capital of the supplier buyers and the ecosystems within that. And that's where the supply chain and the payment digitalization is very key, right? And as part of Aurionpro Group, we are into that, providing the supply chain and banking platform for last around 25 years. And that's where we bring all in one as supply chain and payments as one platform itself. So with that, what I would like to start is purely on to how traditional supply chain was been there and what has changed in the last few years. So when we talk about traditional supply chain, it was more focused on services, right? So we were more focusing on like, okay, how I can provide 3PL service, how we can provide warehousing services, right? It was more on to how to reduce the cost. That was always one of the key factor, right, as part of providing the logistics and supply chain segment. It was more onto the quality, right? And always it has been, right? Any businesses, right, wants to improve the quality, right? Similarly, the services of supply chain, how we can improve the quality of the services. So these were the three key factors as part of the traditional supply chain. But what has been changed, right, is the resilience, agility, and sustainability, right? And when we talk about agility, it's like the change of the behavior of the customers has been changed, right? It has been consumer-centric. Every customer requirements are different, right? Their SOPs have been different, right? With that change, right, it is a need to bring an agility into the supply chain industry. It has changed on the resilience, right? So global supply chain is becoming very key nowadays. Earlier, it was very focused on to like buyers have been focusing on to the buyer supply chain, suppliers have been focusing on to suppliers, distribution centers, manufacturing, they have been all working as a silo. But now supply chain is global. And that's where the resilience has also been key factor as per the new supply chain. And finally, the sustainability, right? Everyone is talking about go green, right? Reduce the carbon, right? Everything has been talking about how we can do the green supply chain. And that's where the sustainability has been playing a key role here. So this is where the next normal strategy has been changed in the last around 4 to 5 years as a new supply chain model. And with that, if you can see, the total growth of the supply chain has been very substantial as part of the global supply chain, right? Not only that, you had seen in the last few years with the, after the pandemic and within the pandemic situation, the e-commerce boom has been increased, right? The number of shipments onto the volumes, onto the Amazon, the Flipkart, and all the marketplaces, it has been drastic, right? We at a home now, we don't prefer go to the Kirana Mall and buy the materials, but we actually order all the materials online. Our kids are actually not going to toy shop, but they actually go online and they select their toys online, right? And that's where there is a growth in the e-commerce industry in the last around 3 to 4 years. And this has changed again the supply chain model, wherein the supply chain players who have been doing B2B business, now they are entering into the B2C offering also. So like some of our clients who have been doing B2B in the before pandemic, some of them have already digitalized their B2B to B2C operation. For them, it was a benefit. They can easily plug and play and start providing the B2C services. But those who were not digitalized, that's where the key part. And majorly, it was an SME segment who had faced those issues. So what is the trends that disrupt the supply chain? So if you see at the first few segments, political issues have been playing a key role. And when we are talking political, we know about the Ukraine, Russia, right? That has been impacting the supply chain. We know that is Taiwan, China, that has been impacting the supply chain. The political issues have been key factors that is impacting the supply chain operations globally. Similarly, the consumer behavior, right? Whether the consumers' buying patterns, right, that has been changed. Where the raw material used to produce before, now it has been happening domestic, right? Make in India has been changed the model. We used to produce a lot of goods in China. Now we have been pushing to get that manufactured in India. So the consumer preference has been changed, and that is the key factors again on the impact on the supply chain. Disruption-driven supply chain concentration. So more focus is going on to the where the raw materials have been produced, where the finished products have been produced. All the focus is getting into that entire supply chain angle which was been there around few years back, that has been getting disrupted. Then we have talent that has been playing key role. When digitalization comes into play, right, how the leadership team and the on-ground team gets been uplifted with the new digital capabilities has been one of the key factors. So everyone is talking about digitalization, but whether the manpower has been ready with digitalization, that has been the key factor. Similarly, recycling, social engagement is becoming key factor. Go green is the word that has been going on in the supply chain globally, right? And for that, it is one of the key factor that has been disrupting the supply chain again here. And last is all the new cloud technologies that have been coming in play. AI, cloud model. This is again one of the key factor that plays a digitalization aspects of the supply chain. So with that, this is where we get into an autonomous supply chain platform, right? And every supply chain players are been trying to get their future supply chain as an autonomous supply chain. And when we talk about autonomous supply chain, collaboration models have been playing a key role here. So what we say collaboration, connecting to the shipping liners, connecting to the airline operators, connecting to the custom players, right? How we connect the supply chain to the ecosystem, right? That is becoming very key as part of the automation. Digital payments have been playing key factor, right? So as you see, government initiatives have been taken in order to digitalize all the payment stream within the supply chain. Buyers, suppliers, cash-free transactions have been increased, right? Most of the payments have been happening with the digital payments. So that's where the digital payments have been into key. We are into closed loop integrated planning. So earlier, as I mentioned, buyers were focusing on the buyer concentrated operations. Supplier was being focused on to the supplier concentrated operations. Now closed loop logistics has been playing, supply chain has been playing a key role. Buyer needs to tell what is their forecast. Raw material, seller needs to tell what is the raw material production cycles. And that's where we say it's a closed loop closed loop logistics is becoming one of the key factor here. Smart logistics, IoT, RFID devices are been playing key role, right? Logistics are getting into a smart logistics segment. RFID devices are being used to track the materials, right? IoT devices are being used, as you had seen, the vaccine supply chain, the entire, when the COVID happened, the infrastructure was not ready, and everyone, all logistics and supply chain players need to get into promoting those IoT devices to track the temperature of the vaccines. And that's where the smart logistics comes into play. The models of logistics, traditional logistics, have been changed to the now smart logistics model. Supply chain transparency has been playing key role. when we talk about transparency, as I mentioned, supplier needs to share what is the inventory positions across all their inventory warehouses. Similarly, buyer needs to let us know what is the forecast that what they can see. Of course, these are all volatile, right? The volumes are increasing day by day. But the transparency and sustainability has been playing a key factor, and that would be the future of the supply chain in order to get it digitalized. And last is artificial intelligence. Everyone has been talking about AI, which will help them to understand what is the forecasting, right? It will help them to improve the supply chain models. So what we see as a future of supply chain, all will be AI-based methods that will be used in order to forecast the volumes, forecast the growth, and that will be the key factor as future supply chain. So this is where we see how the supply chain has been now expanding, right? And all the supply chain players will be moving forward, catering to all these workflows. And that's where the innovation comes, right? Today, within the warehouse, finish in the supply chain industry, the logistics, warehousing, they have been using the current way of doing the warehousing operations. It may be a hands-free operations. Voice pick and light is one of the 5 years back technology which has been used by most of our clients. There are conveyors who actually are being used as part of the e-commerce and the fast-moving delivery. But this has been changed. Now what we are getting into is an autonomous mobile robots, and it has been there in the developed countries. Like we talk about Singapore, Malaysia, they have already implemented robots for their warehousing operations, right? There have been drones that have been using to get into the cycle count or get into the inventory counting. There have been wearables for the digital payments, right? So nowadays we use all our payments happening to mobile. So this is where the wearables and mobile and digital have been playing key role here. Yeah. So all what we see as a key factor of transforming the digital supply chain, regulatory and tax would be the key factor, and that has been playing key role here. Digital transformation has been playing a key factor here. So a lot of technology companies have been getting into digitalization of the supply chain and end-to-end logistics. People leadership training has been key factor here. And the last is the digital payments. So how the suppliers will be paid on time, real time, right? So that they can cater to their cash flows and working capital. That's where the digital payments have been key factor here. So with that, I would pass on this to Bhakti to get more detail on how digital payments have been playing key factor onto the supply chain. Yeah, Bhakti.
Thank you, Snehal. So moving on, right, like definitely we know COVID has been an accelerator in people adopting to newer technologies, people adopting to ensure that they are sustaining. The idea was never to increase business in COVID, but at least to ensure that people are able to sustain. But what happened because of that time is habit. So when you spend 2 years trying to look at digitization, trying to look at how do we sustain and how do we get better, the numbers reflected. So when a survey was conducted by, I believe this is from MasterCard data, where we took up about 120 odd companies all over the place to see what is the reason they want to continue their adoption to digital payments, or the reasons that are driving. So obviously the 83% opted for the efficiency of payment systems, response times, reduced risk, payment settlement. Yeah, there are 2 points here. One is obviously the adoption of digital payments, because companies that were traditionally accepting wire transfers or were interacting with the banks all of a sudden had a variety of options globally, not just in India, to now be able to start accepting payments in a lot other forms. And the settlement, companies that would take 30, 45, 60 days for invoices to get paid, or even for certain loans or credit lines to get issued, a number of rounds with the banks. All of that drastically came down with T+2, T+1 days of settlement. So the visibility was far, far higher, in terms of the payment system and the efficiency. And there was push from the government and the end user demand that obviously accelerated the entire program even further. All of this led to real-time payments. So not just digitizing payments, but also real-time payments. And that's what we see, that there are certain definite use cases when we talk about business payments particularly, and the segments that it's interacting with. So whether it is B2B, B2C, consumer to business, or G2C, all of them have seen a huge impact, huge acceleration of digital payments across the different avenues. So in India, we all know the UPI numbers. I mean, it's no surprise. We've heard it with the UPI Lite launched, UPI on credit card yesterday. Those numbers are only going to go up. So with that, what then happens is, coming back on the supply chain front, from a government, consumer, business, there is an equal acceleration from all aspects to be able to adopt and accelerate their digital payment acceptance. And then the use cases. So from a supply chain point of view, now tying all of the real-time payments back to supply chain, there is a supplier, customer, manufacturer, distributor. They all have payment touch points, whether it is B2B payments or B2C payments. And while there are a lot more use cases that warehousing companies or supply chain companies deal with, we're primarily focusing on B2B and B2C. B2B is obviously a lot more volume and value than B2C, but B2C is where you would have your day-to-day customers really complaining or really reaching out to say, okay, my payment is not happening. Right? So while the value and volume is bigger on the B2B, or rather I would say the value is bigger on the B2B, but maybe the volume is like way higher on especially smaller transactions or the e-commerce push on the B2C. So traditionally these payments on the B2C front are happening on cash on delivery or PDCs, and that would again not give them a lot of visibility into how payments are going to happen. The cycles were longer. And on the B2B front, it was on the PO invoicing and the direct lending, which again had direct interactions with the financial institutes. So now with a lot of lending companies coming into place and a lot more credit available, whether it is through corporate cards, direct lending, digital payments across various networks, right? Not just Visa, MasterCard, but every country now has their own network, or rather have collaborated with other countries to use their networks, which we have seen during the Russia-Ukraine war, where they used other country networks to be able to see how we can not stop digital payments. And that was really the idea, not stop the money flow. And with UPI, we touched upon the new product launches, and with cross-border, again, Lyra, based with now Lyra, we would see a lot more inflow, which was, T+2, T+3, as it was highlighted yesterday as well. There was no visibility if the bill actually got paid, if that credit actually took place. So all of these factors help in ensuring payments are coming through and real-time payments are coming through, which actually helps in accelerating the business far more. And money as a habit or payments as a habit is something you get used to very, very easily. So it's not something that you would go back to a traditional way of doing things if you would see the returns far higher. So what this has led to is more on the benefits that the merchants have seen across the board. And the benefits are primarily into three segments. The settlement, because of the real-time payments, the reconciliation. Because of the real-time payments, you're reconciling at the end of every day or at the end of every 2 days. So there is no month-end reconciliation that everybody is trying to follow up and connect with your books, which also leads to straight AR/AP processing, which is very, very important. So while they are all marked as separate factors and they may impact the business differently, from a pure benefit, they're all linked. It all is happening because your settlements are happening much faster. And this is where corporate cards have seen a very, very big push by both the networks and the governments to be able to use that facility that is available. The other is the reduction in the frauds and the fraud control around it, because businesses have been able to forecast where the volume of they always had the B2B data. There was never a concern on a lot of fraud on the business side, but the consumer is where the real question was. But now, because of AI, because of everything Snehal spoke about earlier from a technology standpoint, there was a lot more visibility into where my customer base is. And that also led to a lot of fraud detection very early on. So technology partners have definitely helped in detecting this and thus evading the fraud payments which was happening. And because of all these benefits that we see here, we do see that in APAC, which is a developing market, and rather keeps developing and is open to newer ideas, the growth in Asia Pacific, the numbers show it, is far, far more. So, in fact, like from a cashless point of view, it's leading in terms of the geography, and these numbers just keep going up. Like even if you look at the top 5 last 3-4 years, even after COVID, I mean not like just after COVID, these numbers are just going to keep growing up, and which is backed by the numbers that Snehal showed early on.
And this has been driven by the government, right? So, and these are some of the latest launch that our Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, has been actually inaugurated. And that plays a key factor as part of digital supply chain as well as digital payments. So as we take first is purely onto the ramp launch, what has been done, which is purely focusing on the SME segment in order to get SMEs digitalized. That has been playing key factor, and in the last few years of pandemic situation, SMEs were the one key players who had actually impacted their operations into digital aspects as well as into their cash flows and working capital. So one of the SME initiatives that has been driven by government. Next is purely onto the logistics supply chain and the new policies that have been launched by government just last Saturday. And as that was quite pending for last few years, and now it is becoming important to change the logistics policies that will help in reduction in the cost. We are forcing the manufacturing Make in India concept will going to change the trend of the supply chain in India, right? And from that aspect, there is need of infrastructure requirements in India. There is a need of technology enablement in India. So that is playing a key factor as part of government initiative which has been launched by government. Then last is on to the payments, where we are under the RBI guidance, right? There's a lot of new initiatives as RuPay and UPI acceptance has been increased, right? We had seen the yesterday launch where
the
like
UPI products that came out, right? Or on the account aggregator framework. So even yesterday, it was announced in the inaugural, right? 1 billion accounts have been already set up. So the launch of the guideline to the actual accounts of the customers being aggregated has been less than a year. The Vision 2025 framework, Vision 2030 framework already in the pipeline, lending frameworks that have come out, that is really changing how finances are now going to be available to the end businesses and the consumers.
That's right. And as India as a part of vision, right? China being a dominating player onto the manufacturing segment, in the last 3 years of Make in India approach, right? We are seeing a major change in the supply chain models, as well as where initiative from the government, why digital payments needs to be keen in order to improve the entire efficiency and of the models of the supply chain. So with India being a strong workforce and lot of Fortune 500 companies have been setting up their manufacturing hub in India, right? Apple, one of the example which has been there. We have been getting as a most attractive manufacturing hub globally, right? So after China, it's like Taiwan and Vietnam, and now we are seeing India as one of the key factor as a manufacturing hub, right? Free trade agreements within 13 countries, that has been helping a lot, right, in order to do an import and export a trade business that has been increased. Double taxations agreements with around a few of the countries that has been helping in the supply chain model. So as part of the government of India's strategic priorities, Make in India, how the logistics cost can be reduced, because now they understand, like when we have been forcing into getting into manufacturing in India, right, logistics cost reduction is one of the key factor here. So pushing the infrastructure, so we heard about lot of cold storage is going to come in, lot of airport operators, they have been enhancing their infrastructure to take care of the cargo warehouses, right? So infrastructure improvement is one of the key. And finally, as we talk about how this entire payment processing, it may be an LC or it may be a supplier buyer financing, all that is being driven with the digital payments. So with this, we are what we had seen how the supply chain has been getting evolved from the traditional supply chain to the new digital supply chain to cater the digital economy, what we have been talking about. And that's where Aurionpro, we come as a platform which will help the SMEs to get digitalized. So if we see at the top, it may be a manufacturer, it may be a logistics, distribution, transporter, or even the last mile delivery, right? End-to-end operations, what we offer to an SMEs to get digitalized. How we do that is getting them an online presence, right? So even if they don't have a basic website, right? And a lot of SMEs have been talking about digitalization, but they don't have even a basic website to promote their products and services. What our platform does is they can, within a day itself, they can enable their own website itself, right? If it is a trader or if it is a distributor, right? Currently, they have been doing traditional business of buying and selling via emails or via calls. Now they can go online by enabling their own online store. Or even they can actually promote their products to the multiple marketplaces like Amazon, Flipkart. So extend their products and extend their sales channel across multiple marketplaces. But there are so many players who have been doing this, right? We have Shopify, a lot of them, they can enable the website. The core heart is the supply chain fulfillment. We automate the entire supply chain processes. It may be for logistics players, it may be for manufacturing. So today they have warehouses, right? We can automate the entire warehousing operations. If they are doing 3PL, 4PL operations, right? For them, it becomes a complete automated platform to do import, export, console, customs, delivery, even the last mile delivery for the e-commerce fulfillment. So that's where the completely automate the operations across supply chain, right? For the distributors, including the last mile delivery, and they will get a real-time tracking of their shipments. And finally, the financing that will facilitate invoice financing. So all the suppliers and buyers who are into our platform, or not even they have been doing their operations as they're using some third-party ERP systems. But the supplier wants their invoices to be paid earlier, right? And that's the challenge, right, across all the developing countries. The invoice credit period is 30 days, but the buyer has been paying the invoice in 60 days or 90 days. Supplier go on following the invoices, and that impacts the cash flows and working capital of the supplier. So what we do here is we facilitate invoice financing. So we partner with multiple banks, we partner with multiple NBFCs, right? And we will facilitate the invoice financing to the suppliers. It may be a direct lending, or it may be via the corporate commercial cards. So we issue the business cards to the buyers, and then the suppliers will get payment within T+1 or T+2 days. Now you can see as an integrated platform, which makes a key differentiator, where we allow SMEs to go online as a presence. We allow SMEs to automate all their supply chain operations, and we allow SMEs, facilitate SMEs, right, to cater their cash flows challenges and working capital challenges via our invoice financing and business payment platform. So that's what we have been doing here, right, as part of AuroPay's offering, and getting details on what we do as business payment, as well as payment gateway.
Yeah, so, we spoke about the supply chain management having multiple actors and then having their B2B payment needs and their B2C payment needs. So the business payment platform and AuroPay basically cater to those needs, and all of this gets integrated into one AuroBee solution where we talk about improving cash flows, working capital, reconciliation on the business payment side, and on the consumer payment it is more about collecting the payment from the end customer, whether it is through e-commerce, payment link, invoices, and so on and so forth. So with this, what we then present to the merchants and their suppliers or buyers is one solution where they can cater to all their needs, all the way from going online to the supply chain management part of it, and finally the payments part of it. So they have one system to be able to reconcile, check, deliver the final solutions to their customers. And lastly, about Aurionpro, right? So we have been doing this for the past 25 years. I mean, this is actually our 25th year in business, or rather we would be approaching the 25th year. We are present in multiple countries, and the solutions we did offer, or we rather did discuss today, have been present in multiple countries over the period of years. What we did over the last 2-3 years is integrate within ourselves to be able to provide the merchant a unique bouquet of solutions rather than disjointed solutions, and see what is the need and how we adapt to the market. So our core really is an adaptation. We have tried to stay relevant in the market and trying to ensure that this is something that the customers can resonate with, and we continue to bring value add in that aspect. So that's about Aurionpro, and me and Snehal are from Aurionpro, obviously working on different verticals, but bringing in this unique solution that caters to what the merchant really needs at this time. Yeah. So I think that's all from us.
So any questions, please feel free to ask questions. And this is our booth at the front of when you enter the hall, right? AuroBees, which allows a complete platform for SMEs, AuroPay as a payment gateway, and business payment as a payment platform for the suppliers and buyers. So that's where we are. Yeah.
Okay.
Any questions or how it works?
Yeah.
So I have a question regarding the supply chain platform that you showcased right now. On one aspect that I want to ask is whether this covers underwriting as well. Is it a part of the solution? And second, is this in line with trades which is already in place for suppliers and buyers? Is it similar?
Okay.
Or how is it different from trades?
Okay. So as part of the supply chain offering, yes, it's part of the Aurionpro offering what we have been giving as an end-to-end solution to automate their businesses. So as I mentioned, like when we talk about logistics, it may be a third-party logistics players, or it may be a warehouse operators, or it may be a distributors of key shippers, maybe Nestle, Unilever, right? We automate the end-to-end supply chain. So that comes as a part of the key integrated offering what we do. How it differs from trades? Yes, trades also do invoice financing, and they provide the platform for business payments. But they have been more focusing on financing, right? And that is one part of our offering. So as you saw, business payment, that is where we are in the similar offering what trades do. But see, when the invoices comes into play, validation of the invoice plays a key role, right? How accurate this invoice is, or how authenticate that invoice is there. And for that, linking in back to the supply chain against that particular purchase orders, right? Against that particular transactions that has happened, or the milestones that have been done, again, for that invoices plays a key factor. And that's where our integrated offering of supply chain as well as financing plays a key role and differentiator from trades. So if the banks wants to evaluate that whether this invoice is authenticate, they can go back to the purchase order level. They can go back when the stock was departed from exporter, when the stock was arrived at an importer, when the custom clearance was being done. You can imagine the entire authenticity of that particular invoice gets at a higher level, right? Rather than just taking it as an invoice and we are saying like, can you finance that invoice? Our expertise of 25 years being into supply chain, being into the banking solutions and the financial supply chain offering. We brought it all together so that we can have a complete visibility of that invoice before the payments have been done. And that differentiates from trades. You know.
So you mean to say that suppliers, buyers, banks, I mean the lenders,
Yeah.
all these are actors who have to be on the platform?
Are up to be in the platform. And they are like supply buyers are already onto the platform, right? And the banks will be coming as part of the platform to lend or finance the suppliers and buyers. Yeah.
I think we'll address one more question.
Yeah.
Hi, Gaurav this side. Thanks, Snehal, Bhakti. On the supply chain flow and fulfillment, can you enumerate the different pieces of your tech stack? And also,
Different pieces, sorry.
of your technology stack?
Okay.
And are those something you working with partners or you've developed yourself?
Okay. I can go back with this. Yeah. So if we see on the technology, on the key offering, right? So if we start from the manufacturer here, of course, manufacturer would be using some ERP systems for their production and process and everything. But we have been seeing challenges of all the big manufacturers of like every supply chain operation is more localized. You can actually standardize the production process. But when the stock goes to India, right, India supply chain challenges are different than the Indonesia challenges and Singapore challenges. And that's where we come into play, where we actually automate the process of the supply chain, not as part of their manufacturing process, but their supply chain processes. So as part of the offering, we focus on getting the manufacturer, their raw material and finished products inventorized. If they are doing their distribution by themselves, we automate their entire transportation to the last distribution centers, right? And all these players, right, if it may be a third-party logistics players who will be using like Cold Rush, Polestar, who have been into purely into the supply chain logistics movement, they are the one who actually use our platform to automate their entire logistics processes, their transportation processes, right?
So I meant like, I think you mentioned track and trace.
Yeah.
Tracking and visibility, one.
Right.
Then I read order management system. So this, for example, the order management system, is this something which
So
is
it's
developed
more
in-house? This is your own OMS?
The entire platform is an in-house platform, right?
So OMS is one, track and trace is one. Is there a TMS? Is there a WMS?
Yes, so all this comes as part of offering. When we talk about transportation, it's a TMS.
Okay.
Right? When we talk about logistics, it's about freight forwarding. Right? So 3PL operation, 4PL operations, all that has been offered. When we talk about warehousing, retail and trading, it offers a complete warehousing suite, right? For your receiving, dispatch, and it's completely paperless mobility operations that what we provide. We also do last mile delivery and e-commerce. So if any of the merchant who actually have a last distribution centers who take orders from Amazon and Flipkart, they use our platform. Merchants use our platform for doing the entire fulfillment of the orders. So when I talk about order management here, the orders comes from Amazon, Flipkart. The entire packaging process, QC process, how the orders can be delivered on time. So when you get an order from Amazon, right, at the backbone, there are a lot of activities that have been done at a warehouse before it gets packed, labeled, everything. That's where our last mile and e-commerce comes in.
Do you also have your own WMS?
We have our own WMS.
Okay. Can this work across channels besides online and offline?
Yes, but mostly for SMEs, we are enabling as an online platform as AuroPay.
So in terms of exposing, say, inventory from all my channels to all buying points, can that be done?
It can go at the first level, second level, till the third level distribution where the inventory is being stocked. So at a core hub till the distribution center to the last mile points.
Thank you.
Can you please do this? Yeah.
So last. So we have an email ID, you're right, and you can please visit our booth, right, to get more info. If you haven't gotten time to answer any of your questions, please send emails, right? We'll be happy to answer that. Thank you very much. Yeah, please.
Sure, give it up for Snehal and Bhakti. Well, that brings us to an end of this particular session.